I'm back with part 3, and now I was talking about pedophile rings. So basically now they've got the orders, they've had a profiler come in, and this is what makes me mad. This profiler comes in as an actual trained police profiler and basically does the profiles for this pedophile ring. Then they go out, they get their goon squads in, they go out, look for the profile, they bring the profile back, there is a procedure and that follows, and then what happens, see, pedophile rings are not just interested in every child out there. They're not. They are looking for specific profile. And unfortunately Daniel Morecambe fitted that profile. I want the video or the DVD that was made by this pedophile ring, because in my training we go frame by frame. You look behind me, you can see there's a temperature gauge, you can see there's a shadow. If there was a mirror or there was a reflection, sometimes if you go by second by frame, you can actually pick up who's in that, and maybe we can get some answers. That's one way of getting answers. Once the profile's done, now my understanding is, I remember very vividly, and I remember very well, I walked into this studio, and surrounding this bed, we had the boss, we had the executioner, we had the judge, we had all these people. Now I already knew who a lot of these people were because I'd read their profiles and I knew who they were. We had judges, we had police officers, we had doctors, nurses. The doctors, some of the doctors and nurses there were to assist in the making of the video. And what makes me mad from today, I can get my back up quite well with people because I don't trust them. Because people of authority, people that are in authorities, are involved in these pedophile rings, and are involved. The pedophile rings in Australia are quite ingrained in Australia, and the police say, the Queensland police back in the 1980s had actually a whole record of addresses down the Gold Coast of these people and other places in Australia, Melbourne, Sydney, wherever. But the simple fact is that they just chose, that they thought that this monitoring the situation is good enough because they couldn't get enough evidence to actually get the big fish. See, in my operations of work, we look at the small fish to get to the big fish. So here's a small fish here, and we want the big fish. To get to the big fish, we need to get to the small fish. I want the Queensland government to protect Queensland children. I want a zero tolerance, and I want an education program to teach people about pedophile rings, and I want people to be aware these sort of activities are going under their noses. You walk down the street next time and you ask yourself this question: who are you walking by? Next time you're in a court of law, just remember this. Just remember this. The judges up there that is judging you could be quite easily involved in a pedophile ring, drug rings, whatever. Off the record, there are judges in Australia that have very shady backgrounds. They are put in these positions of authority. What are they being put in those positions of authorities for? The thing is, you do not use a juvenile. In the 1980s, which I was used, I was trained in intelligence. I was offered by the federal government to no longer exist. Kosher, I was never born, I wouldn't exist. I was being trained, I was being groomed by the federal government to eventually become one of these ghosts. One of these ghosts that did not walk. I said, no, stuff it, it's not worth it, I don't want the job. I was threatened, I was told this, I was said once you've married to them, you're married for them to life. At the end of the day, my point of view is here. We need a zero tolerance on child protection. We need a zero tolerance. And whether this affects normal people in society, so what? Children should not be sacrificed at the expense of a minority or a majority. This should apply right across the board. It should be a zero tolerance when it comes to child protection. There should be a zero tolerance that if you are caught on the internet talking to children and you have no legitimate reason to be doing that, Because the simple fact is, enough is enough. Let's stop wasting government taxpayers' money. Let's stop wasting the state taxpayers' money, and start protecting the children of Queensland and start protecting them from this behaviour. There are people in governments, in politicians, that have shady backgrounds. Shady backgrounds. And I'm not going to go into those politicians, but I'm telling you now, there are politicians in government that have shady backgrounds. And a lot of the ones that I'm talking about, there are still a few that are still exist in Canberra, but at the end of the day, they have shady backgrounds. What I mean by shady backgrounds, they have been involved in the past in these issues. And the simple fact is, this has got to stop. This has to stop. It's been nearly 30-something goddamn years with myself, 20-something odd years with myself, that what I'm saying is falling on deaf ears. The Queensland government and the federal government do not want to admit that, hey, Cameron was involved as a juvenile, as an undercover police officer. At the end of the day, honour, serve and protect at whatever cost. You ask yourself this question. Excuse me, sir, or excuse me, ma'am, you have the rights to remain silent. Any words you may say may be used against you in a court of law. You have the rights to remain silent. Any words you may be used may be written down as evidence and used against you in court. Do you understand? You are under arrest. You have committed an offence. We are taking you down to the police station. Do you understand? At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, why has someone got this training? And if you want to challenge my training and you want to challenge who I am, give me the case. Give me the case and I'll deal with it. In 2005, I was actually harassed by the Queensland Police to go back and work for them. I said, no, I will not. It's not worth a bullet in my head. I want Daniel Morcombe to be laid to rest. I want the truth to be spoken and I want the truth to be told. I want the truth to be told on this profile. The profile is Daniel Morcombe. They stuffed up big time. They stuffed up big time, and they have overstood the mark. They have overstood the mark this time, because I've seen the police investigations into Daniel Morcombe, and I have been watching very, 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 very closely. A lot of things they stuffed up with. They stuffed up. They jeopardised the investigations. They've done a lot of things. They've given time for people to run and time for people to escape. And what I do not think is fair is that I plead and I beg someone out there that was involved in Daniel Morcombe's disappearance with the pedophile rings, have a guilty conscience, for God's sake. Have a guilty conscience and come forward. I don't care. Come forward to whoever, or write a note, do whatever and say, hey, this is where Daniel is buried. Allow Bruce and Denise to have some peace. Allow them to be at rest. I plead with the pedophile ring, somebody that's involved, for God's sake, to come forward and say, I don't care how you come forward. Come forward with whatever way you want to and say, hey, this is where Daniel is buried. And I hope, for God's sake, he's not being put through a meatworks. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to tell anything. But I'm asking for someone to come forward and just put this to rest.